Network. We have one more conversation that we wanted to bring you up to date on. And this is a conversation about reparations and how the state of California, the Reparations Task Force, may be moving one step closer to having some of the Black residents of California to receive some sort of financial payout. As of right now, it looks like the state of California might be on the precipice of making history. Now, according to the latest coming from the Reparations Task Force that was established back in 2020, this first and foremost, this task force is the first and only task force in the rest of compared to the rest of the country. But more importantly, this task force is looking forward to having the conversation about how much should Black residents of California should receive. Well, take a look at this. This is coming from KTLA here in Los Angeles. The California Reparations Task Force, they've released estimates as well as breakdowns of the methodology used to determine the amounts, and this was done on Monday ahead of a critical vote that will take place later this week. Now, according to what the task force has put out there as being how they want to move forward on this whole situation, and I want to share this with you. Keen, if we can post this, thank you. The California Reparations Task Force, they are talking about, I'm looking at the second paragraph here, folks. It says the possible payments reflect the work of economists who advised the task force and who were asked to estimate the total financial losses suffered by Black Californians impacted by slavery and institutional racism. As outlined by the San Francisco Chronicle, an eligible resident who lived in California their whole life and was 71 or older could, in theory, receive as much as $1.2 million. If approved, the task force would urge that the money begin to be dispersed in the form of, quote, down payments, according to CalMatters. A new state agency would need to establish to distribute funds and determine eligibility, according to CalMatters. That agency would also help Black Californians trace their lineage to confirm that they are eligible for the payments. I want to bring my brother Michael Imhotep back into the conversation around this issue of reparations. Brother Michael, for the task force to lay out this methodology, to lay out, these requirements, what do you say?
Well, they're progressing along. They by July 2023, they have to present their second and final report that makes the recommendations. The interim report came out June 1st, 2022. It's 500 pages. I've read the 28-page executive summary. I'm working my way through the full 500-page report. So they're continuing the task. They were charged with coming up with a methodology to determine the amount for reparations. They weren't charged with putting a dollar amount on it. That's what the state assembly, that's what the state legislature in California would do. The California Reparations Task Force was charged with coming up with the methodology. So they consulted with economists who have done that. Now, once again, as we talked about before here on the show, in the 28-page executive summary, they outline 12 harms. Okay. They outline 12 harms that African Americans have suffered nationwide, but also there in the state of California. They talk about enslavement, even though they've identified about 1,500 people who were in a semi-slavery state in California. When California comes into the Union in 1850, they come into the Union as a free state. They talk about racial terror, political disenfranchisement, housing segregation, separate and unequal education, racism in environment and infrastructure, like the expressways coming through California, as well as through San Francisco, especially wiping out African-American communities and businesses, pathologizing the Black family, control over creative, cultural, and intellectual life, stolen labor and hindered opportunity, an unjust legal system, mental and physical harm and neglect. And the 12th one is the racial wealth gap, So they're continuing in their charge, what they're supposed to do. So what I think is important for us to do is, one, read the first report, especially 28 page executive summary. Two, one of the things that they talked about in the article from KTLA is the California Reparations Task Force is also recommending that a state agency like the Freedmen's Bureau be created to help African Americans. It would need to be established to distribute funds and to determine eligibility, but also help African Americans in California trace their lineage to confirm that they are eligible for the payments. So once again, based upon California state law, race-based policies are illegal. So this is why, in I think it was 2022, they voted to make any type of benefits that are distributed based upon lineage. You'd have to prove your lineage that you were descended from someone who was enslaved prior to 1900 or of African descent who arrived in the country prior to 1900. And what they're trying to do is legally get around the restriction on race-based policies in the state of California. So whatever benefits are passed in the state legislature and signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom won't get overturned in court when Republicans file lawsuits, because lawsuits are coming. I'm telling you right now, if Republicans file lawsuits to block the debt forgiveness on student loans, the executive order that President Joe Biden did, and that's going to help millions of white people, they're coming after this.
So knowing that, Brother Michael, do you feel like the California Reparations Task Force is prepared? Because, I mean, one is, what's the timeline? Like you mentioned, June of this year.
July 2023, yeah.
Right, July of this year. They're going to be presenting their final report.
Right.
So and let's not gloss over the fact that there are still groups out there who have been working within this reparation space who don't even agree with the task force's methodology, the establishment of a California Reparations Task Force, to even go this far into the conversation. So how do we, bring some sort of reconciliation with that situation? You got folks on one side are like, oh man, this is great. And then the other folks are like, this is not enough. This is done wrong. This is not what the reparations movement needs to look like. This needs to be a more federal conversation and not a statewide conversation. So I know that there's some level of infighting that's happening there.
So unfortunately, when a lot of these conversations take place, one, people don't want to deal with reality. Two, people don't want to deal with like finances, deal with the budget. The annual budget of the state of California is $300 billion. Okay. So a month ago, when one estimate came out that reparations could total $800 billion. Okay. And that did not include the theft of land. Now that's a calculation, but I would argue that that's 2.5 times the annual budget of the state of California, which probably is not realistic. Right. So there's a difference between what is just due and what you can calculate on paper and what can actually be paid by the state of California. This is not the federal government, this is the state of California. Okay. Just like there's a difference between what somebody personally may owe and what they can actually earn and pay in a month or a year. Okay. Right. So yeah, you may owe this debt, but this is all I make. Okay. So deal with it.
You can't, right. I want to stop you right there because I got to take another pause.
All right.
And that's a great point. That's a great point. Folks, when we come forward, we will continue the conversation talking about the latest developments in the reparation movement for the state of California and how that affects the rest of the country. Join us in the conversation and stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about the reparations movement as the California Reparations Task Force since moving further along, taking another step forward to ensuring that Black residents of California get some sort of financial payment. Now, as of right now, the estimate looks like being around $1.2 million for eligible Black residents of California. And those eligible residents would have to adhere to the metric or to the requirements of living in California their whole life, being 71 or older, and that those who would be eligible would have to go through the process of making sure that they are in fact eligible by confirming their lineage for the state of California. And there's a couple of other requirements that Black residents would have to take in order to become eligible for that $1.2 million. The other part about that is that the task force is urging that the money begin to be dispersed in the form of down payments, and that a new state agency will be created to distribute funds and to determine eligibility. Now, we've been talking to my brother Michael Imhotep, about this situation. And Brother Michael, you were making the point that if the state of California brings in a certain amount of money, $300 billion for the state of California, we can expect to ask for more than that, 2.5 times more than that, as you say, for reparations. So the 1.2 million, does that sound more reasonable for residents that are older than 71 here in the state of California?
Well, number one, I'm not sure how many people are going to qualify for that. We'll have to see how many people qualify for that. Two, are the 1.2 million, is it going to be in installments or is it going to be in a lump sum? I'm not sure.
I mean, they said down payments.
So it could be in installments.
Right.
That is only one part of the compensation. That's only one part of the restitution, the cash payments. So a lot of this more will come out when their final report comes out. I know when we looked at San Francisco, for instance, in San Francisco, so like statewide in California, African Americans are like 6% of the population, right around that. Same as San Francisco. Okay, so we'll have to get more details on this. But I wanted to address what you were saying, where you have some groups that say we need to deal with federal legislation as opposed to state. We need to do both. Wherever we are in power, we need to push to repair the damage that government did. This is designed chiefly to repair the damage that the state of California government did, not necessarily the federal government. Okay, we need to deal with the federal government, but the largest effort to deal with the federal government so far has been to get a study done, HR 40. Okay, no disrespect to the Honorable John Conyers from Detroit, where I live, who represented Detroit, and no disrespect to Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. But if you can't get a study done after 50 years, you can't get that legislation passed in the House and is dead on arrival in the Senate. How do you get a bill passed to pay reparations, to distribute reparations? So my argument is, take the 500-page study that the California Reparations Task Force has done, take the policy recommendations that they're making or modifications of the policy recommendations, and make that at the federal level and pass and push to get those bills, those laws put into effect. And also, as we talked about before, take the title reparations off of it. The reason why is because African Americans are about 14% of the population. Reparations nationally, okay, outside of the African American community, reparations is not popular. So why would you put a term on what you want that does not poll well with the majority of the people who got to vote for this stuff and the majority of the country? Take the policies off, take the title reparations off, push the policies that you want. And then third, the most important thing, explain how these policies don't just help African Americans, but also help the majority population, which many of them do. Because what's good for African Americans are good for America in general. The majority of the people that got to vote on these policies in the House and the Senate are white. And for some reason, that's something that people still haven't figured out. So understanding a business relationship, what's in it for me, you need to explain to them how voting for these policies also helps them and their constituents.
Great points. Great points.
Because you need 60 votes in the Senate.
Right, right.
Okay. There are 51 Democrats in the Senate means you need 9 Republicans. No Republicans support reparations. No. Not in the House or in the Senate, not even the black ones. So the way this has to be marketed, it has to be better. Number one. Number two, and people mean well. I understand this. People mean well, sacrifice their lives, things like this. But the way this has to be marketed has to be better. Number one. Number two, our purpose for voting has to be better explained. Stop telling African Americans to vote for exercise. If you want to exercise, you go to the gym and work out. You vote for power. You vote for power acquisition to be able to put people in place to get policies passed that are beneficial to you, your family, and your people. What's good for African Americans is good for America. Politics is the legal distribution that scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay. Once you change what the purpose is, the end result, then you understand that you have to lay out a strategy that puts you on the road to accomplish the end result. But if you're told that you vote for exercise, you vote because of Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer, even though we need to study their history. No, you vote for the present and the future with the understanding of the past, and we stand on their shoulders. But you have to vote for, see, politics impacts every aspect of our lives, from the water we drink to the air we breathe to the food we eat. Everything deals with politics. So you have to vote for policies that are beneficial to us, as opposed to symbolism, talking about voting to exercise your right to vote. No.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking at this piece, and I'm going to get to a couple of crew members before we close out today. But USA Today just put this piece out, Brother Michael, saying that the California Task Force is set to vote on plan for reparations this weekend. They are planning to host their next meeting this weekend, and it's supposed to be set this Saturday at Mills College in Oakland, California.
Right. Yeah, they've been doing a lot of. Go ahead.
Mills College in Oakland, California is where the next meeting for the Reparations Task Force for California will be held at. That will be this Saturday. And they are putting together, as Brother Michael has been talking about, they're putting together their final recommendations to be submitted by June 30th to the California State Legislature.
Right.
So we're talking about a very short period of time. This is already May, the beginning of May.
This has been a 2-year process, basically a 2-year
process. They're trying to bring it all together.
Right.
And you know, this is going to, if it goes through, and this is you know, you always talking about politics and history and understanding the legal system.
Right.
Gavin Newsom is a contender, or has been talked about, for running for president of the United States.
Well, he's not going to run against Joe Biden. That's not happening. He ain't running against Joe Biden.
He probably won't run against Joe Biden.
But in the future, he
might
run.
be, right.
Yeah.
But the fact is that if he decides, if the legislature decides, I mean, this is going to be historic in a very big way.
Right.
Not only just in talking about getting reparations, the cash payout, but you're talking about setting up an infrastructure, a model that other states can start to use, where
correct,
you might have task force in Detroit and in Michigan and Maryland and other places.
Right. Well, there's a reparations task force here in Detroit, but yeah, statewide, this will set the model. This will set a precedent.
That's all it, yeah.
And for the federal level as well. Yeah.
And for the federal level.
Absolutely.
And for the federal level, right? But I was telling a sister I know that because in a lot of cases, because we were talking about this, that a lot of this does have to happen on a state level in order for the president or for Congress to really take it seriously on a federal level, because it's coming out of their budget. It's not coming out of the federal budget. It would have to come, the way the
from state.
conversation is shaping up, it looks like it's going to be coming out of these state budgets rather than the federal budget.
Right, right. And not only that, it would set a precedence, it would set a model that then can be used at the federal level. So first of all, you know, shout out to Camila Moore, attorney Camila Moore, who's the chairwoman of the California Reparations Task Force. I think she's been doing a fantastic job. I've been following this for 2 years, as well as shout out to everybody who serves on the task force. Okay, this is a lot of work. And I think it's really important for us to have realistic expectations of what can come from this as well. Just because you don't get every single thing that you want does not mean what you get is insignificant also. But yeah, we have to push for this. But this is why voting is so important. Okay, you wouldn't get here if you didn't vote the right people into office in the state legislature. And if you did not vote Governor Gavin Newsom as governor, because he's the one who signed off on this legislation that created this task force. That was a bill that came from the California State Assembly. He was the governor who signed off on it. Now, Larry Elder, if Larry Elder had become governor of California, Larry Elder would not condone this. He would reject any recommendations that come from it. He would not have signed off on the bill that created the task force.
Right.
So we have to understand this, you know, and really it ain't about political parties, about whose policies are most beneficial for African Americans, whose policies are most realistic, whose policies would do the least amount of harm, who can create an environment for us to push our agenda the farthest to get the most accomplished, and who will protect gains that have already been made. That's what it's about. So Don't compare. So I'm neither Democrat nor Republican. I'm definitely not stupid. Don't compare Democrats to perfection. Don't compare them to the almighty. Compare them to the alternative. The alternative are Republicans.
There it is. Brother Michael Imhotep, always a pleasure to have you. Brother, very quickly, let's talk about the work you're doing with the African History Network.
Yeah, so I teach online history classes, among other things, online history classes Saturdays and Sundays. This Saturday and Sunday, we're offering free class sessions. Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. It's a 12-week online class that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history, what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. All the sessions we do live, but they're archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them a year from now, 2 years from now. And then Sunday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I teach another class, Black Resistance Movements, from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. We look at history chronologically from 1800 to 1968 to understand the laws and policies put in place that brought us to where we are today, to understand where we need to go from here. And you'll learn political self-defense and psychological self-defense as well, understanding our history and culture. So visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, and you can use both of these classes with your children as well. I would say the content is PG-13.
That's awesome. There it is, Brother Michael Imhotep. You can see him here on The Culture, as well as Roland Martin Unfiltered, here on the Black Star Network, one of our great scholars and researchers here. Thank you, Brother Michael. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, thanks, Farajii. A couple of weeks ago, I was on Farajii Muhammad's show, The Culture, and I was given an update on what's taking place with the, it was May 4th. I was given an update on what's taking place with the California Reparations Task Force, California Reparations Task Force. And we did not get a chance to talk about this on last Sunday's show because we ran out of time, like we ran out of time on this show today. But anyway, so there was a article. I talked about this in last Sunday's class, Black Resistance Movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. The California Reparations Task Force has approved the recommendations for payments of up to $1.2 million for qualifying African Americans, Now, what's interesting is that this article here from Fox News, published May 7th, 2023, this type of headline is designed to infuriate their readership and the people who watch Fox News, and Fox News skews to older white men who are not college educated. Okay. kind of like the guy that shot Paul Yarrow in the head, the 16-year-old who went to the wrong house. An 84-year-old white man sits up, watch Fox News all day, and consumes other conservative media. He was so scared, he shot him in the head, kind of like that. California Reparations Panel approves payments of up to $1.2 million to every Black resident. Now, there's a word that's missing from the headline, and Fox News knows this, because when you scroll down and you read the first sentence, it tells you they know that their headline is false. The first sentence says the California Reparations Task Force formally recommended that the state offer payments of up to $1.2 million to every qualifying Black resident. Every qualifying Black resident, not every African-American resident in the state of California, which is about 2.6 million people. Notice it's missing from the headlines. Now, how is it that it's missing from the headlines, but you have it in the first sentence of your story? Because it's designed to infuriate the people that you've been lying to all this time. That's what this is designed for. These white supremacists, a lot of them who support Daniel Penny, okay? That's who it's designed to infuriate. The task force held a public meeting in Oakland, California on Saturday, and so that was Saturday, May 6th, and voted on the final set of recommendations to be sent to the state legislators. The 9-member panel called on the state to offer its Black residents a formal apology in addition to the payments. Quote, reparations are not only morally justifiable, but they have the potential to address long-standing racial disparities and inequalities. Representative Barbara Lee, a Democrat from California, said after the meeting. Now, the panel's recommendations breaks payments down by types of historical discrimination. For instance, African-American residents affected by redlining by banks would receive $3,366 for each year they lived in California from the early 1930s to the late 1970s, amounting to up to $148,099. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. This is the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show. All right, let's go quickly to the phone lines before I go to this clip here dealing with the California Reparations Task Force. We have Wilson on line one. Wilson, we only have a couple minutes. Go ahead quickly with your question or comment, Wilson.
A comment. Good evening, Mike.
Hey, how you
doing? Hopefully, the Black California will receive something as far as jury and other oppressive measures that have been taken over the years. But as it relates to slavery, I'm a bit perplexed because California entered the Union as a free state.
Right.
And I don't see how, in terms of slavery, I don't see the case to be made unless you approach it from the fact when it was a territory.
But then the main focus is not on slavery.
That might have to come out.
The main focus is not on slavery. The focus is on what happened after slavery ended up until the present. The main focus is not on slavery. Go to
so the reparations are not about slavery?
Very little about slavery. It's about the history that happened after slavery ended. Go keep listening. Keep listening, Wilson. Okay, let's go to clip number 4. I was on Farajii Muhammad show, The Culture, and we talked about the California Reparations Task Force. Let's go to clip number 4, please.
Everyone needs to have.
Okay, let's get past this ad. 1 hour 28 minutes 33-second mark. Pause it right there. Okay, so whatever benefits are given won't be overturned in court. Okay, read this article here. Why an 1860s agency that helped newly freed Blacks might return in California. This is from NBCnews.com from May 14th, 2023. That deals with that agency. All right, we're out of time here. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. You support the African History Network, register for my online history classes. Right now, it's correct your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We talk to you next week. Peace. All right, everybody. We're out of time. Next week we'll get to these a couple of these other topics here. Be sure to support the African History Network. If you learn anything on tonight's show or today's show, be sure to support us. $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. You can Google the California Reparations Task Force. And then also for the I'm gonna give you the link here for the it takes you to the study. Okay, it's under OG. What is it? I have it up here. Yeah, oag.ca.gov. Okay, that's the Office of the Attorney General for the state of California. Rob Bonta. Okay, right here. Rob Bonta, Attorney General Reparations Report. That's Assembly Bill 3121, Task Force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. Okay, so they have the link here for the full interim report, executive summary, key findings, preliminary recommendations. A final report will be issued before July 1st, 2023. So it's coming out in about the next month or so. So check this out. This is at, you can check out this website. This is OAG, Office of Attorney General, oag.ca, california.gov. Okay, oag.ca.gov. And you can just Google this as well. All right, now, lastly, I mentioned those 12 harms, and I put them into a PowerPoint presentation when I was speaking to Thurgood Marshall Law School, when I was speaking to a law class at Thurgood Marshall Law School about 2 weeks ago. This is something I talked about. The 12 harms that are outlined in the 28-page executive summary. Enslavement, racial terror, political disenfranchisement, housing segregation, separate and unequal education, racism in environment and infrastructure. 7, pathologizing the Black family, control over creative, cultural, and intellectual life. Control over creative, cultural, and intellectual life. And let's see, the last one here, stolen labor and hindered opportunity, an unjust legal system, mental and physical harm and neglect. And number 12 is the racial wealth gap. So you have to repair that damage that was done. Okay. Lastly, I've been communicating with Camila Moore, who's the chairwoman of the California Reparations Task Force. We're Facebook friends, and I follow her on Instagram, and she actually posted a video of me on Farajii show about 2 months ago talking about reparations, because the California Justice Initiative, they CJE, I forgot the exact name of them, this other organization, they posted that clip, and they deal with reparations as well. Okay, let me go. I want to play this clip here. This is Camila Moore at the Revolt 2022 Summit, Diddy Summit, Revolt 2022. She's talking about the 5 forms of reparations under international law. Now, she's an attorney, okay? So that's why a lot of what she's talking about dealing with reparations is like the real deal. Is not a bunch of pie in the sky, simple Simon ass nonsense. She's actually an attorney, okay? That's why, and I've been following her. She has a lot of good information. She breaks down the 5 forms of reparations. Cash payments are not the only form. And as I've said before, we need comprehensive reparations. Cash payments alone is not going to do it. Let's go to this clip.
Task Force Chairperson Camilla Moore at 2020 to Revolt Summit.
What reparations is. So under international law, reparations comes in 5 forms. So compensation or cash must be included because that's one of the forms of reparations under international law. But there's also restitution, and that accounts for stolen land, stolen labor, stolen property, real or intellectual. So that's relevant in the entertainment space in terms of the cultural contributions of African Americans, right? The other form of reparations under international law is rehabilitation. So that can look like free medical care from birth to death, free education, free legal and trauma services. Then there's satisfaction, which accounts for more symbolic forms of reparations, like a formal apology, the taking down of Confederate monuments, and the erecting of statues that honor our ancestors, for instance. And then the last, or the 5th form of reparations under international law is guarantees of non-repetition. So that gets at more structural and institutional policy change. So my personal opinion is that you cannot call a reparations package reparations unless it includes all 5 of those forms. So it has to include cash, it has to include a check, it has to include restitution, it has to include rehabilitation.
California Reparations Task Force Chairperson Camilla Moore at 2020 to Revolt Summit.
Include all 5 forms. This is what I've been talking about. And when you actually read the California Reparations Task Force report, and I've gotten through the 28-page executive summary. When you actually read through it and it lays out the harms, you realize just cash payments alone are not going to do this. And if we all got $1 million today, you know, white people will have most of it back by this time next week, and the laws and policies that were put in place that inflicted the harm would still be there. Those laws, you haven't addressed the laws and policies at all. Okay. So this is why you have to, 1, do a systems analysis. 2, you have to assess the damage that was done to understand what has to be corrected. Okay. You have to assess the damage that was done to understand what has to be corrected. And I have mine here. I don't know where I put it. I had it right here. I have so many articles here. Stand by. But it's around here in one of these stacks. So check out right here. Here it is right here. Okay. So this is 28-page executive summary. Okay. So check this out at I printed it. I took it to a printer, got it printed out. So I'm going to print up the full 500-page study so I can go through and read that. All right. If we look here at, okay, right here, we can bring up, we can click right here for the executive summary. It'll come up. You just click on the link right there in the on the website that I gave you. Executive summary is right here. So you have some people saying that because California does not have a real history of slavery, that's why it's important to deal with the systemic racism that happened after slavery ended. But that goes for across the country, to tell you the truth. And this is something I've been talking about. You have to deal with the structural inequities that exist today. Deal with the laws and policies that were put in place that brought about the structural inequities, and trace that back to the Reconstruction era, the Civil War, and slavery, as opposed to the majority of the conversation being about slavery. You have to change that narrative, talk about present day structural inequities, systemic racism today, and deal with how that came to be. Deal with the laws and policies that were put in place. that continue to inflict the harm today and trace that back to slavery, as opposed to the majority of the conversation being about slavery. That's a losing argument. Page 7 here in the executive summary says some scholars estimate that up to 1,500 enslaved African Americans lived in California in 1852. Enslaved people trafficked to California often worked under dangerous conditions, lived in unclean environments, and faced brutal violence. Okay. In 1852, California passed and enforced a fugitive slave law that was harsher than the federal fugitive slave law, the fugitive slave law of 1850, the federal one of 1850, which was part of the Compromise of 1850. Harsher than the federal fugitive slave law, and this made California a more pro-slavery state than most other free states. Now, California also tried to ban all free African Americans as well. It didn't work, but they tried under their first governor, Peter Burnett. California also outlawed non-white people from testifying in any court case involving white people. California did not ratify the 14th Amendment until 1959, which protected the equal rights of all citizens, and the 15th Amendment, which prohibited states from denying a person's right to vote on the basis of race, until 1962. Okay, so they did not ratify the 15th Amendment until 1962. This is California. Read this article here, and not to get out of here. This deals with California tried to ban, once tried to ban all free African Americans. This is from history.gov. So this is the type of history I teach in my online history classes. Those that don't know, this is the type of history we get into on Saturdays and Sundays, especially Sundays, because we deal with history from 1800 to 1968. California once tried to ban black people. The new state's leaders banned slavery, but tried to kick free black people out. This is from originally February 9th, 2018, updated May 8th, 2013, written by Aaron Blakemore for history.com, the official website of the History Channel. When Peter Burnett took to the podium in Sacramento in 1849, he faced a group of men like him, pioneers determined to take California from an upstart territory to a full-fledged state. He had been elected California's first governor just the day before, and as he addressed his fellow legislators, he brought up one of the most explosive issues of his time: the place of black people in the future state of California, the place of black people in the future state. California had decided to ban slavery after a heated debate, but Peter Burnett's vision did not include black residents at all. Quote, "It could be no favor and no kindness to permit free blacks to settle in the state," end quote, he said. He went on to say, quote, "While it would be a most serious injury to us, had they been born here and had acquired rights in consequence, I should not recommend any measures to expel them. The object is to keep them out. The object is to keep them out," end quote. Now, Peter Burnett, who was the first governor of California when it became U.S. territory, because the governor before him was Pio Pico, who was of Latino, African American, African, and Native American ancestry, Pio Pico. Peter Burnett was not alone in his vision of a California that banned black people. Throughout the 1840s and 1850s, California citizens and legislators fought to ensure that free African Americans would be prohibited from immigrating to or living in California. And their efforts eventually And though their efforts eventually failed, they reflected the fear and racism faced by African Americans in the American West. All right, so read the rest of this article. I don't have time to get into the rest of it. We're out of time here. California once tried to ban Black people. This is from history.com, official website of the History Channel. We have to get out of here. Be sure to register for the online history classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. If you miss the class we did on Saturday, is archived. We didn't do one today. We're going to do it either Monday or Tuesday. Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, because we ran into technical difficulties today. But we had a great class on Saturday. Okay, so we'll post a link here. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. You can register for the classes there. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. A year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire class, and because it will be archived, so you can go back and watch the entire class. And our next class will be on Saturday, May 20th, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, Saturday, May 20th, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. We have to get out of here right now. It's correct your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Oh, and contact me through the website if you want me to speak at your Juneteenth event, either in person or virtually. Contact me at theafricanhistorynetwork.com or email me at ahnshow at theafricanhistorynetwork.com. All right, we'll talk to you